So as you guys know, I am someone who self-studies, and part of this journey has been me actually teaching myself how to study. I have a whole video about my history of school if you'd like to check that out, but I am not someone who came from a very studious background. You guys know I recently restarted my coding journey, and I told you guys I would be taking you along this time. And part of that has been me showing you guys parts of my study sessions and my vlogs and just updating you guys on where I am within the boot camp. So today I thought it would be good to do an updated study routine because there's some things that I've been learning since taking this boot camp that have been working for me, and I really want to share them with you. So I'm going to break this video into 5 sections: what I use for supplies, how I take notes, how I apply and study those notes, what I do immediately after a study session, and some tips that I've learned along the way. So if you find a section more interesting than the other, there will be timestamps in the description box below so you can skip around as you need to. So let's just jump right in with the supplies that I use. I used to have a notebook for every single coding language that I was learning, and that became a little bit too much because one, I started running out of space to keep the notebooks. I was also wasting paper because anytime I would start a new resource, I felt like that was an excuse to get a new notebook. So I just got tired of buying new notebooks. That's money, that's paper, that's just too much. Now I use the 5th generation iPad Air as well as the 2nd generation Apple Pencil. You guys have seen that in plenty of my videos. And as far as apps, I use GoodNotes, Notion, Anki cards, which we'll get into in a second, and then I sometimes use Freeform in Notes. I also recently just purchased a good pair of headphones. I got the Sony 520s. I think they're like WHC or something like that, but I'll have them linked in the description below if you're interested. They were only $40, so really affordable, especially for students and, you know, people that are just on a budget. They, I think, were originally $80, so hopefully they're still $40 on Amazon. I think they were $40 at Best Buy as well, so I'll have it linked below in case you want to check them out, but they are amazing. The noise cancellation is there. The microphone is there because I actually have used them at work for meetings. And yeah, I just love them. And the reason I got some headphones is because I was using my AirPods. They weren't even AirPod Pros or anything like that. They were just like your regular 2nd generation standard AirPods. And I found that this is the second pair that I've had that the left ear just is going out for whatever reason. So I was like, I need a reliable pair that is, you know, actually good. And what I love about them, I need to do a whole review on these by themselves, but what I love about them is you can switch between 2 devices. So while I'm studying, I can have the audio coming through my laptop, and then if somebody calls me, I can pause that and it'll instantly switch over to my phone without me having to pair and disconnect and all that stuff. So that was really, really good. But the main thing I've been using these headphones for studying is listening to ASMR while I'm studying. I don't know why I did not pay attention to ASMR before, but I am in love with ASMR. So what I'll do is I'll look up like study ASMR, relaxing ASMR, sleep ASMR, just different things to just get you relaxed. And I swear to you, that has been the biggest thing that has been helping me focus in on my study sessions. I will just like kind of really turn up the volume and just let that play while I'm studying, and it's like I can just go. Like I've been using it to work, like when I'm working on my video ideas and content creation. I just get through it. And before I was listening to like jazz or like Latin jazz or Latin like instrumentals and stuff like that because those are kind of like relaxing to me. Kind of like the music that you always hear in my videos. I just love that kind of music. And I'm not someone who can have like the TV going or a show playing or even music with lyrics because any type of words that I'm hearing around me starts to interfere with whatever I'm reading, and it just doesn't work out for me. So I have to have music that is no words, so no lyrics, or I have to here lately only use ASMR. So that's one of my tips. Okay, so let's talk about how I actually take notes. I use the Cornell note-taking system. I've talked about this in a previous video, but that works perfectly for me. And it also worked out that when I started taking 100 Devs, the bootcamp that I'm currently taking, the instructor did recommend taking questions and not notes. That's how he says it. Don't take notes, take questions. And this perfectly aligns with the system that I already use to take notes anyway, because the Cornell note system is basically split up like that. So you put the title or the topic at the top of the page, and then on the left side, you are able to write down your questions, and then you use the right side to kind of go through those questions, answer them, or write down more information about the topic. So again, Cornell note-taking system is perfect for that. And for that, I do use the GoodNotes app. There are tons of templates that you can use, tons of different types of paper that you can buy on like Etsy or that come with the app itself. I personally created my own because I wanted a certain amount of dots. I wanted it to be very specific, and I just wasn't finding it on the app or in Etsy. So I made my paper template like super simple. It was super easy, but That's what I do. I take questions, not notes. Before, I would read through all the documentation, or I would read through whatever resource I was using at the time and write down word for word whatever they said the definition was. And that did not help me at all with retaining the information and really solidifying it for myself. So that's another thing I found when taking notes. Try not to write everything word for word and try to explain things in your own way. Try to take the concepts and then explain it in your own way, because one of the best ways to learn is by explaining or teaching someone else. So if you find that you don't have anyone else to teach or you don't have anyone else to explain it to, that could be another way to do it, is to take that concept, write it out in your own words so that you actually know that you understood what was going on. So another thing that I do while I'm taking notes is sometimes, since I'm already taking questions instead of notes, I will plug that question into ChatGPT and I will ask that question and ask them to give it back to me in a way that a 10-year-old would understand, so that I can take this really high level concept and have it explained to me in a way where, again, a 10-year-old kid understands, so that I can make sure, okay, like, yeah, I get the analogy, I get how they're connecting the dots here, and it really helps. So that is another thing to keep in mind, is to use ChatGPT or any other AI tool that you love to aid you in your studies, because it's here, it's not going anywhere, so we may as well learn how to make it work for what we have to do. All right, so let's hop into the next section, which is talking about how I actually study those notes. So I, again, learned from this bootcamp and a Coursera course that you have to take for this bootcamp of how to learn, that active recall and spaced repetition is one of the best ways to study and the best way to learn new things. I also have a video that you guys can reference by Ali Abdaal here on YouTube. I'm sure you guys have heard of him if you are into productivity and things like that. I'll have his version of active recall and spaced repetition down in the description below, because he goes over it amazingly. And because I'm not good at explaining things, let's look at ChatGPT's definition of active recall and spaced repetition. So according to ChatGPT, spaced repetition is a learning technique that involves reviewing information at increasing intervals to enhance long-term memory retention. And active recall is a learning technique that involves actively stimulating memory during the learning process by testing oneself on the material rather than passively reviewing it. This method requires learners to retrieve information from memory, thereby reinforcing their knowledge and enhancing retention. So for active recall and spaced repetition, I use a software called Anki Cards. I do have the desktop version on my MacBook. I believe they do have it on Windows as well. You can also pay to get it on your Apple device, like your iPad. But I highly don't recommend doing that, even though I did it. The only reason I did it is because sometimes I have free time at work where I'm able to study, and I don't bring my personal laptop, but I always bring my iPad. So I wanted to have the opportunity to go through my flashcards sometimes if I'm sitting there with nothing else to do, and just go through the material as well. So I did pay $25 for it. I know that's crazy, but I don't recommend it if you have a situation where you're studying and you can use your laptop at all times. Just use the free version, because honestly, for what I use it for and how I use it, there's no difference. It's just the fact that I just wanted it on a mobile device so that I can have more access to it when I'm not in front of my computer. So the way that I use Anki Cards is I will take the questions that I wrote down during the note-taking session while I was listening to a lecture or reading through the material that was assigned. I will make sure that those questions are answered, take those questions, put them into the software, and then there's a section underneath the question where you can plop in the answer. And the cool thing I like about this is that you can make different decks. So I have a deck for HTML, CSS, and then I've started one for JavaScript, so that I can kind of split them up by topic instead of having a whole bunch of cards just because. So I know that if I go through the HTML deck, it's only questions about HTML. So when I was learning about semantics and different ways to choose your elements and different keywords and things like that, I was able to just strictly focus on that. Same thing with CSS. When I was learning about selectors and different things that go along with CSS, I was able to just create those questions and then go through only CSS. So the way that this helps with spaced repetition and active recall is the active recall comes in when you're actually going in and saying, okay, this was my question. I'm actively recalling it. I have to actively think of the answer and think of what this means. And then the spaced repetition comes in where after each question you answer, you can select the difficulty. So you can select easy, good, hard. I can't remember the exact ones, but I'll show it on the screen. And then depending on what you answered, as far as like how you rated that question to be, it'll come up in different intervals. So if you rate it hard, it might come back up in 10 minutes. If you rate it easy, you might not see that question again for 10 days. It all depends on when you started the deck and how often you're answering the questions and how you're rating them. So hopefully that makes sense. But again, I'm going to show you an example on screen. So it's highly recommended to look through these cards every single day and to practice them every single day because, again, the spaced repetition. And as long as you're getting through all the decks and doing them every single day, they'll automatically space them out the way that you need to, because you also don't want to look at it too much. So that's another reason why Anki cards has been amazing, because it's doing the work for you, basically, where you don't have to remember, did I already take these? Oh, I need to wait 5 days to take them again so that I don't overstimulate my brain with this answer or this topic. It actually does the work for you as long as you are doing your part and just revisiting your Anki cards every single day, making sure all of your decks are caught up, that you've gone through everything and nothing is actually due for you to go through and review again. So the fourth section that we're going to talk about is what I do immediately after I study and take those notes. So I have taken my notes, I have reviewed and done my active recall and spaced repetition. Now it's time to actually apply that knowledge. And the best way, you guys have heard me say it, and I'm sure you've heard other people say it, the best and probably the only real way to learn how to code is to actually code. So what I like to do is actually jump in and apply the knowledge that I just learned. So any concepts and topics that I learned about, I'm going in and I'm picking a project where I can directly apply those things. So when I first started my journey, I was very overwhelmed about where to start, what to start, how to start. And there are many resources out there now where you can actually get project ideas. So one of my favorite places is Front End Mentor. I will have it linked in the description box below as well. That is a great resource. You can choose which level of difficulty. So if you're a beginner, if you're intermediate, or if you want a hard project to try, there's different challenges that you can go on there and try if you don't have any design ideas yourself that you want to code out. But I love going on Front End Mentor and just applying whatever knowledge, because no matter what I'm learning, there's always a project that's appropriate for those topics. Another good thing to do is to look at some of the passion project ideas you might have. So if there's a website you've been wanting to build, maybe it's a portfolio or a blog, or if you have an app idea that you want to build for yourself, or a app that you want to build to help solve problems for other people, those are great places to start. Don't ever think that you're starting too early, because as you're learning the fundamentals, you can start applying those building blocks, because all of those projects have to start from the beginning anyway. So it's a good idea to just start while you're learning and do those portions as you go, if that makes sense. So if you're learning HTML and CSS, start doing the HTML and CSS for the project. And as you learn JavaScript, start implementing the behavioral aspects of the project as you learn the different parts of JavaScript. So I highly recommend working on passion projects. But again, if you don't have any passion projects that you can think of, there are resources that I will link down below to give you ideas and actually challenges that you can do to get through and practice and apply what you're learning. All right, so in this last section, we're just going to go over some tips and things that I've learned along the way that hopefully help you on your journey. And the first thing is to always plan ahead. So don't go into your study session without knowing what you want to study, knowing what you're going to go over, what you're going to do. Like, have a plan. And the best way to do this, in my opinion, is to plan it out the night before. So maybe at the end of your previous study session, you can just take a few minutes to write out what you want to do tomorrow. That way it's fresh in your head where you left off and what you might need to revisit or pick up one the next day. But I highly recommend not just getting up and saying, oh, I'm going to code today, I'm going to study today, and not knowing anywhere about where you're going to start. Because what can happen, and what has happened to me plenty of times, is that you can get overwhelmed to the point where you don't know where to start, and then you don't. So don't do that. Always have a plan. Know your study schedule if you can, and know what you want to study. Tip number 2 is to try to get a change of scenery whenever you can. I know for me, studying at home can be pretty hectic. I do have 2 kids, and I have a dog, and I have a husband. So even outside of them, if I'm studying while they're at school or anything like that, I'm still in the house. So I'm thinking about house things that I have to do: the dishes, the laundry, mopping, giving the dog a bath, whatever it is, it's right there. And I'm more prone to stop what I'm doing and go do those things because they're bothering me than if I was at a cafe. I can't actually do those things. I can't wash my dishes at the cafe. I can't fold my laundry there. So I'm there with only the things that I need, nothing else to distract me. And so it really does help to get a change of scenery whenever you can. Tip number 3 is to try to find people that are studying the same things as you and have different study partners that you can call on. And this doesn't mean that you have to have study sessions with these people all the time. Me personally, I'm introverted, and I personally like to be alone sometimes, a lot of times. But it really does help to have someone that you can reach out to say, hey, you're studying the same thing. can you help me? I'm not really understanding this. And you guys can kind of bounce ideas off of each other and help each other fill in the gaps. Luckily for me, my husband is someone who is also in tech and is in the world of coding. So sometimes if I don't understand something, he can kind of help me understand it. Even if he doesn't know, he's just so smart to me. But even if he doesn't know, sometimes he kind of gets the concept a little faster and he can kind of better explain it to me. And also it helps because he's in the same industry. Sometimes when I'm learning new things, I'll use him as explaining, like he's the person that I'm explaining the concept to help me further learn and solidify what I've learned. I'll tell him like, hey, I just learned this, let me explain it to you. I'll see if he understands it, and then that means that I probably understood it too, if that makes sense. So try to find people that you can study with, whether it is in person or just somebody that you can have that knows what you're going through and you can reach out to. So tip number 4 kind of goes along with the first one, which is try to have a schedule that you can stick to. Now, this is something that I am still struggling with and working on. So don't think that I'm perfect and I have this perfect study schedule, because I do not. But it is so hard to kind of just jump in sometimes. Like for me, for example, if I don't get up at a certain time and then I'm just thrusted into making breakfast for the kids or cleaning or running errands or taking this kid to practice or doing this, it's kind of hard for me to find that place where I'm like, okay, I can sit down and study and be okay with it. On the days that I have intentionally set aside the time to study and said like, okay, I'm going to wake up at 7 and study from like 7 to 9, and then I'll start my day with my family or whatever else. Those are the days that I'm more clear-minded, I'm calm, I'm able to retain the information better, and I'm actually able to get through the study sessions. So I understand we are all busy. I understand we have a lot going on, but I kind of think of this in a way of if I was enrolled in university or college, whatever you call it, where you live, you're on a schedule with them if you're in person at least. If you have in-person classes, you have a certain time that you have to go to class. Now, if you're online, it's a totally different story, but just kind of trick your mind into thinking that you are enrolled somewhere. This is not something you're doing on your own, and see how that works out. Set aside that time to study and see how that plays out so that you're not just running into your study sessions. So the 5th and final, most important tip, in my opinion, is to be gentle with yourself and take care of yourself. We are human beings. We are not robots. We are not machines. You have to replenish yourself. You have to make sure you are eating properly, getting the proper hydration, exercising, all these things. And trust me, again, this is not something that I am perfect with. I still don't have a workout situation. Like, I struggle with working out. I'm trying to increase my water intake and all of those things. But I do find when I do those things, I feel a lot better, which in turn helps me show up a lot better. So take care of yourself, get your rest, eat your nutritious food, drink your water, get out and go walk. You don't have to do like this crazy weightlifting and all this gym routine and stuff like that. Like, do what's best for you and your body and your health, but take care of your health. And this is me speaking to myself, because I have literally made myself sick just trying to do things like too much, working and doing the house stuff and studying and staying up late and waking up early and whatever else, and not taking care of myself. You will burn out, you will quit, or you will make yourself sick, or all of them. So don't do that. Take care of yourself and be gentle with yourself. Remember that everything takes time. Remember that you are human. You are okay. You are where you are for a reason. This stuff is hard, and that is okay. You're not going to learn it overnight, or maybe even in a month, but one day you will, and it'll become second nature to you. So keep going. One day you will do so much repetition that it'll just click and you'll be like, oh my gosh, I understand. And it'll be so worth it. So give yourself grace. Know that it doesn't happen overnight, and that is okay. And you have to take it at your own pace and not anyone else's. So hopefully this whole video was helpful. Hopefully you understood everything. Hopefully it gave you some insight on things that you can maybe apply to your study sessions and how to go about learning how to code. Thank you so much for watching. I love you guys so much. You know that. Thank you for being here, and I will see you guys in the next one.